and concerns so that we can answer the questions that that you have. And so we anticipate some of them, but also there's the opportunity through the Zoom presentation. If I have set this up right for you to using the question and answer function on your Zoom to ask questions yourselves more directly. And what I'm going to do is sort of tune back and forth between the screen you see shared in front of you and the question and answer function of Zoom. One of the first questions that I would typically actually be posing to you as parents, were you at the Rose Hill campus with us in our McGinley Campus Center having this presentation live, something we wish we were doing right now, was to raise your hands if you were at all nervous about this transition. And then I'd be facetiously, but semi-seriously accusing those of you who kept your hands down of being dishonest, because I think most of us, even with you know, second or third students and children coming to a college campus, maybe you've dropped your sons or daughters off at other campuses and other universities in past years. Maybe you've never done it, as none of us have during a national health emergency. All of us have questions and concerns and anxieties about the coming year. And we'll talk a little bit about those and hopefully answer as many of your questions as we possibly can. But please do feel free to use the Q&A function on the screen to ask those questions. And I will tune back and forth and try to answer them, okay? I want to talk a little bit as well during the presentation, not simply sort of in boilerplate terms, the kind of language that one would come to expect from admissions literature and our website, et cetera, but also answer your questions with data. We do a lot of assessment, a lot of surveys here at the university, a lot of research among students to check on whether or not we're doing the things that we promised to do in the course of our year. And so I'm going to share some data with you. I think you might be interested in this. We know we are. And it's our way of demonstrating not simply that, you know, we say things that we're going to do, but that we actually do things that we're going to do. And we're constantly checking to see how effective we're being with this. And in fact, all of our staffs, all of our departments have an annual presentation in addition to annual reporting where all of this data is shared with the rest of the university and oftentimes shared at orientation, just like here. This is the same stuff we share internally, a lot of it. That we're going to share with you today. Again, to answer that question, not simply what do we say we're going to do, but whether we're actually doing what we say we do. So listen, some of you are nervous. Some of you are honest about being nervous. Others of you maybe not. And we'll talk a little bit through the presentation about some of that. The advice that we're going to give you may be eagerly anticipated by some folks. Other folks have kids who, like my oldest, I have two daughters. My oldest basically waved over her shoulder as she walked into elementary school that first morning in kindergarten. No big deal. My younger one, not so much. Basically, I think we had to physically insert her into the building in order to get her to go to school. Kids are different. Each student, each of your students, each of your sons and daughters will approach this differently. And so your level of concern and anxiety, et cetera, will be a little bit different. Some of you may be thrilled for this transition. Some of your sons and daughters are thrilled for this transition as well, of course, right? But others are a little bit nervous. One of the things that I often joke about in the course of the summer orientation program, looking out typically at a room full of first-year students and parents and families is how much energy I see the first-year students expending trying to look as nonchalant as possible about this experience. For some students, that's hiding some anxiety about this. For other students, it's just hiding, you know, a sense of excitement about this. And I want to emphasize here at the front end of the presentation that we're going to give you some advice about some of the things that that may be challenges during the course of your first year. We're also going to be working to give you that advice, pulling heavily, dependent heavily, and indebted heavily to our mission as a university. Our job is to have your students, your sons and daughters, spend 4 years with us and leave our university transformed, to have their diploma handed to them at commencement, something that we begin our experience here at orientation firmly, and with which we begin our orientation firmly in mind, is this last day here at the university, when we hand your sons and daughters the diploma, when our name as an institution is on them, and when they leave our gates to go in service to the larger world. They've hopefully learned to do that. They probably come to us with the elements of that already, and have hopefully been transformed while they're with us into people who will be committed to lives of service outside the university. That's our mission. And hopefully you'll see shot through the presentation today that that's what we're emphasizing. But though we will be talking about further into the presentation some of the challenges that students can anticipate and families can anticipate in the course of the year, I wouldn't want to give this presentation to you as families in any way insinuating that these challenges are likely to be encountered by families. For the vast majority of people, for the vast majority of time over the next years that students will be with us, this is just simply going to be an amazing experience. And they're very excited about this. And I wouldn't want anything that I present to you today to give you the impression that they shouldn't be. They should be. And it's kind of adorable that they're trying to hide their excitement oftentimes in the run up to opening and orientation and move-in, but it's perfectly natural. You, however, may be anticipating as well that, or seeing as well, that they're anxious about certain things that hopefully this presentation will give you a sense of. They may be nervous about new friends and fitting in, whether they will be a part of the community and feel as welcome as they hope to feel as soon as they set foot onto campus. Right? That's a normal anxiety and normal concern for our students. They should be excited about, but maybe a little bit nervous about as well, that the life of the mind, the core educational mission, the core purpose of all of our students coming to our university, taking classes at our university, living on campus here at our university, and even the core purpose of their participating in what folks sometimes refer to as co-curricular or extracurricular activities is, at the end of the day, their education. And we'll talk a little bit about that as well. They should be very excited about that, but maybe also a little bit anxious about it too, and that's okay. They may be a little bit anxious about new relationships, but they should be excited about new relationships as well. Sometimes parents and families can be a little difficult to persuade that they should be as excited about new relationships as sons and daughters are, but that's okay as well. And I want to talk with you in the course of the presentation as well about some of what Fordham has to say and some of the approaches we take to assuring that those new relationships are respectful and are healthy as well. And so much of the presentation as well, you should know, is not only driven and sort of populated with the language of our mission, but is driven as well by our sense of community. Mere presence in our community, mere participation in our community, membership in our community, which each of our students at this point have. You know, they are part of our family now. Once they've accepted becoming a part of Fordham University, once they accepted the offer of admission, they are part of our family, as are you. And so community is the medium through which, especially in student affairs, we seek to educate your sons and daughters and students. And so big piece of the presentation today, hopefully you will get the sense of, is emphasis on community and emphasis on participation in community. It's really, it's meant to be a community that we work for and with your students, your sons and daughters, in creating each year. And it's one, it really is sort of in so many ways the sixth class that so many of our students, all of our students, are expected to take in the course of their Fordham career. So many of our alumni, so many of our current students, especially the ones in the junior and senior year, especially the ones in the senior year who are contemplating leaving the university, can talk, I think, in very inspiring ways and quite eloquently about how much not only they have learned inside the classroom, but also outside of the traditional classroom, through activities, through participation, through membership in clubs and organizations, through service, through working with one another. That is an extremely important element of our work here at the university. And you'll see that in the presentation as well, hopefully emphasized. Well, one of the main questions that that folks are having right now that we're getting through emails and through some of the parent chat rooms that that our admissions area and our enrollment area have set up for parents, understandably so, sometimes on the phone as well, is related to the ongoing health emergency in the country. I want to refer you to and ask that you stay tuned to the fordham.edu/coronavirus web pages for up to the minute updates on the university's plans for reopening, restarting. It is our fundamental commitment, as Father has put out, as the Provost has put out, as our Senior Vice President for Student Affairs, Jeffrey Gray, has communicated to the community. It is our fundamental commitment to resume in-person, on-the-ground instruction at the university, as well as residents. And we are in the process of, in a very fluid environment, in an environment that seems to, every time I open up my browser and look at a news site and check on COVID statistics and other things, New York State directives and executive orders, there was just one today in the state of New York related to masks and personal protective equipment. We are planning in a very aggressive and very energetic way to open as safely as possible. But our fundamental commitment at this stage is to open in-person instruction and open residence on campus. A lot of the questions that folks have had have been things that we've had to say, we'll get back to you on. Because again, as an example, the 20-state quarantine that was rolled out just a couple of weeks ago has sent us back to the planning drawing boards. This mask executive order will also, though I think we find it pretty helpful, will be sending us back to the drawing board as well. But stay tuned to fordham.edu/coronavirus for answers to questions and routine updates on our planning for opening. All right, just wanted to put that out there right at the front end, and apologize to some extent as well, because we're finding this to be an extremely challenging planning environment. We have a very organized, annually updated, annually improved approach to things like summer orientation programs, the orientation program itself, move-in and opening. And we're having to really just put all that stuff up on the whiteboard and figure out how we're going to do it despite a national health emergency. Very challenging. I won't in any way be anything but candid about that. We're going to be asking for maximum flexibility because we're trying to be as flexible as we possibly can be in our planning. But stay tuned. We will be in touch. Okay. Now I want to talk to you about some of the challenges as well. Maybe one of the first challenges that, that students can begin to feel in the process of making this transition is feeling a bit overwhelmed. A lot of these transitions like this, which may be the biggest transition that your student, your son or daughter has ever had in their life, right? Maybe going back, the next, most challenging transition might be, starting school when they were very young, or transitioning from middle school to high school or something like that. But this is even bigger because it involves, for the vast majority, a transition to a completely different set of people, set of friends, set of teachers, set of faculty, completely different geography. Some of the students and families that, students or the families of students that we're talking to today may be sending people thousands and thousands of miles to a city that is unfamiliar to begin a new career. Feeling a little bit overwhelmed by all of those things is something that can be challenging, but the message that I'd like to leave you with here today is that it's completely normal. This is an expected, in fact, it would be a hugely surprising thing for students not to feel a little bit of this anxiety and a little bit of this feeling of being overwhelmed. At our university, I want to assure you as well that we are aware of this, are prepared for it, are very sensitive to it, and are ready through mainly people here at the university to assist with it. We place a tremendous premium on contact, communication, and connection here at the university. And of course, In this environment, it can be a little bit challenging because of social distancing to maintain those things. But what I can tell you is that we will still have these, what I like to conceive of as concentric rings of people surrounding each of our students here at the university, people that are trained, hired, and highly motivated, again, toward that mission, helping others, being women and men for others, to assist your sons and daughters and your students in making this transition. You've met some of them already. You've met and seen the orientation staff, the 4 undergraduate orientation coordinators who are driving, along with Mr. Balistrasi and Ms. Briganti, the orientation program. They, in turn, are supervising orientation and orientation captains and orientation leaders, 200 strong. People hired from somewhere north of 300 people who interviewed for the position. Our most highly motivated, highly enthusiastic student leaders, ready and extremely enthusiastic about bringing your first-year student into our family and emphasizing that they are already a part of our family and emphasizing that welcome. And so eager to talk to your students, your sons and daughters, about what kind of family this is and what kind of experience this is. Orientation staff, resident assistants, 97 strong in the residence halls, hired from, in any given year, about 150 or so applicants. We only hire about 35 to 55 of those applicants in any given year. These are some of the best and most motivated, again, student leaders on the campus, living in community with our residential students. Similar to our resident assistants, our commuter assistants, essentially RAs for our commuting population, hired and present for, and already in so many ways in touch with all of these folks, in touch with your students. Our orientation staff actually over the past couple of weeks have been in touch through text and now through phone calls and through Zoom meetings that are being scheduled now, along with administrators like myself and Mr. Balistrasi and Dean Arcuri, participating in a process of making contact even earlier over the summer than we typically do. Again, to emphasize that we are here to help and are available to them to answer any questions, reassure them about any anxieties, and address any concerns. One of the things that folks should know as well is that beyond the students who are hired and are a part of our undergraduate staff, which is very numerous, and intentionally assembled to assist students, because so often students are more comfortable asking people who look a little bit different than me, a 50-something-year-old administrator on campus, than they would be asking someone who looks like a peer. But we also have student leaders and peer educators, folks who work in campus ministry, diversity peer leaders, and others present in the community who, though they don't have job descriptions that are specific to orientation or welcoming students, are extremely enthusiastic about doing so. And I want to, talk a little bit about, in a few moments, belonging and about some of the things that they will be doing in the course of the year, and move away from talking about some of the various people here at the university. But you see them up on your screen. The basic philosophy is that, be they undergraduate staff or undergraduate employees, student leaders who are active in the community and love Fordham and want to share Fordham with other students, or paid adults on the campus, such as those folks working in campus ministry or people working as resident directors in residential life, or staff and administrators throughout the university, or of course our faculty. We have people everywhere around the university who are ready to help students with that sense of being overwhelmed. That's our job. And if you sense with your student, with your son or daughter, that they are particularly nervous about this transition, I want to ask that you consider the first year formation class, the freshman year formation class that we offer every year. Mr. Balistrasi actually runs the program. The best way for me to describe this is that it is a class about how to be a student. It is a class about how to best transition. It is a weekly meeting with a small group, an administrator, instructor, as well as a student instructor who co-teach the class. And it's essentially about how to be a Fordham student, right? So if students are worried about belonging in clubs and organizations and joining, if they're worried about time management, if they're worried about academic studying and note-taking skills, if they're worried about money management, if they're worried about issues that range from substance abuse to participation in the community to spiritual issues, etc. This is a class that is meant to and designed to assist them with the transition. So if you're getting a sense that that overwhelming feeling, which is completely normal, may be interfering with the student's ability to make that transition, or if you think they could just use a boost, tell them to register for that FYF class, first year formation class. It really does assist students in making the transition here at Fordham University in the best possible way. In a relaxed environment, in a way that, and in a classroom approach that in no way adds to the workload of students. Sometimes that's one of the concerns that students and families have about the FYF class. You know, why would I want to register for another class? I'm already feeling a little bit overwhelmed with the 5 that I'm already registered for. Don't look at it that way. The FYF class is actually getting together with other students who are in the same position, with an administrator who can help and a student who can help. It will actually make your success more assured in your core academic classes, because it's literally a class about how to excel in those areas as well as all the other areas, even outside the classroom. So remember that, the FYF class. Look for our emails and our registration process, which I believe are already out or coming out shortly. Yep, I see Mr. Balistrassi on my screen. He's giving me the thumbs up there. Good, thank you. So, college level work. Quick piece of advice on this. I'm not the academic dean. There are presentations, as you guys know, and may have already participated in throughout the day, coming from the colleges. What I can tell you is that our faculty are extremely eager and hired for mission, extremely eager to connect with students. There's a piece of paper that they will be giving out in an electronic form, no doubt, maybe even in advance of the class, but available to every student in every class as of that first class, called a syllabus. And up at the top of that syllabus, not just because it's required, but because it's intentionally added, are contact information pieces or points for all of our faculty. Our faculty invite students to connect outside the classroom, and I can't recommend enough that students take this opportunity and take the faculty up on their invitation. Use those contact points, those emails, those office hours, those phone numbers to connect with our faculty outside the classroom and put a face to a name when it comes to that relationship. Extremely important. The faculty will be making an effort to do this, but I find over the years and have found over the years, and we know from research, that students who take advantage of connection with faculty outside the classroom have greater success, understand the material better, feel a greater sense of belonging and inclusion in the academic life of the university and in those classes. So ask your students, your sons and daughters in the first weeks of class, not only if they've been waking up for their 8 o'clock classes, which they need to be doing and should be doing, but also whether they've actually connected somewhere outside the classroom with our faculty. They've been invited to. That's in part what that syllabus is. The mere fact of having office hours and contact information included on the syllabus is the invitation to students to connect with our faculty, and our faculty are very eager to do that. So encourage them to do that in addition to waking up for that 8 o'clock class. So just a piece of information on college level work. We'll take a look at some of our questions before we moved on to some of the others here. I'm going to touch base on some of the health emergency related elements here as well in a few moments. A question that is related to the academic: would a student take first year formation if they are in Manresa, or are the two experiences similar? They're not. They're quite different, in fact. The residential college at Loyola Hall Residential College hosts the Manresa Scholars Program. The Manresa Scholars Program has registration with the Manresa faculty associated with it, but it's really an academic focus. The freshman year, first year formation class focuses on all of the challenges of freshman year. Everything from the academic, note-taking and time management, through relationships, through mental health, through wellness and management of anxiety, the number one issue, mental health issue for our first year students. Those are things that really are not touched on in the Manresa Loyola Hall academic program. So there may be programming on that. FYF is really quite different. And so highly recommended for even our Manresa students. Good question, thank you. Are students returning back to campus after Thanksgiving to take final exams, or will they take final exams remotely? At this stage, though this, of course, you know, in this environment, this could change. At this stage, the plan, the academic calendar has not changed after Thanksgiving. It does entail the resumption of classes after Thanksgiving and before the winter or Christmas break. If that changes, we will let you know. But I have not seen anything that indicates it has as of this date. Good question. I want to talk about belonging. We've been talking about belonging from the beginning. It's one of the anxieties that students have as they enter this new community. And I want to talk to you a little bit about one of the most important elements of belonging here in our culture. And it's something that not only you should be, you know, calling your students about or asking your students about, you know, when it comes to, are they getting to their 8 o'clock class? Are they connecting with faculty outside the classroom? You should also be asking them the all-important question, what are they doing when they're not in class? What are they doing when they're not studying? Have they joined one of the 140 clubs and organizations here at the university of students who are going to be beginning this summer and continuing through what we call at the university the club fair? These students are going to be recruiting your students to join them in their clubs and organizations. Clubs and organizations really are the foundation of our little society here, our campus culture that's created every year on the campus. It's not created by people like me. It's not created by administrators. It's created by students as they devote themselves to these clubs and organizations and do programming and activities and meetings and organize themselves on the campus for whatever their interest and focus are. Everything from cultural clubs to clubs related to service, to clubs related to specific activities, to clubs related just to social programming. Many of our most active and most popular clubs and organizations are related to student government and policy, engaging with the university, engaging with people like me in you know, being a part of the running of the university and the setting of policy here at the university. One of the most important questions you can ask your student is what they have joined. And we're not just going to leave it to them to have to take that step. We are going to be recruiting them. It's one of the most important, I think, and really honored and valued traditions. If you ask any student about the club fair, they will report that they've either participated in it as someone being recruited, or they've been behind the tables, typically arrayed around Edwards Parade on the campus, the big green quad on campus, recruiting students to be a part of their clubs and organizations. What that will look like this year in the semester of social distancing is still up in the air right now. I think there will be a pretty heavy virtual element to that. We know we're going to start some of that this summer in the coming weeks as well. But it may be even more important this year, in a year when social distancing is going to make it challenging to make some of those connections. So ask your students and communicate to your students, hopefully something we are communicating through the course of the day today, tomorrow, and in our main orientation in August, that it really is an expectation of students here at the university that they join, that they participate. It is a rarity among students in so many ways to see students who aren't joining, who aren't participating in some way, who aren't a part of something in some way. And usually the thing that they are a part of, I think it's one of the magical things about our culture here at the university. The thing that they're a part of is something that's been created by and is run by students. They join with one another. They're a part of something here. They're participating in clubs and organizations. A very important element of the education here. And it's not just fun and games. You know, as I said before, we really do conceive of everything that happens outside of the academic world, outside of those 5 classes that students are registered for typically in their freshman year. We consider that the 6th class here at the university, a part of their education. It's actually and we know this just simply from looking at the academic schedule on a weekly basis, the majority of their time is spent outside of the classroom. So what they're doing outside of the classroom is a hugely significant piece of their education. So encourage your students to join and encourage your students to be a part of our community. And advice to resident parents as well, don't bring them home that first weekend that they call and tell you that they miss your washer and dryer or tell you that they miss your lasagna. Leave them here on campus. Don't allow them to bail out of that transition and actually impede and slow down the transition by coming home early in the first semester. It's a big mistake that some of our parents sometimes make, feeling bad, feeling like students, you know, miss home or homesick. Call us for assistance if you have students who are feeling homesick. Let us know. Let us know how we can assist. We will assist, but don't come and get them and bring them home, because what you're doing is you're slowing down the transition. That sense of belonging, that all-important sense of belonging, that all-important sense that they now belong to this new community here at Fordham University, so much depends on that. And by going home for weekends, they're missing out on a huge set of opportunities to participate. And don't let them tell you nothing's going on. We have, in the course of a year here at the university, something northward typically of about 6,500 to 7,000 programs, events, and activities through the course of the year. There is so much going on here at the university, it can sometimes be hard to track. And if you are hearing from your student that they want to come home for the weekend because there's nothing going on at Fordham University, my number will be up on the screen in a few moments. The orientation people are also available to you. Call us and tell us that. We will let you know what's going on at the university, and you can pass it back to them. So just a piece of advice for our students coming in. And some data. This is the data I was talking about. You know, we can talk as much as we want about enhancing the sense of belonging for students here at the university. This is what our students tell us in terms of how strong the feeling of belonging is here at the university. It's quite strong. One of the most important assessment elements that we have. This is resident and commuter students. And for our resident community, it's even stronger. We do a very large 250,000 student survey nationally among 245 institutions of higher education. And Fordham University, in terms of its feeling of community, our students telling us about how strongly they feel they belong to our community, Fordham University comes in 5th out of all those institutions. An amazing response by especially our resident students. And a response as well that touches on an important element of our mission here at the university, exposing students to people who are different from them, people of different races, sexual identities, sexual preferences, ethnicities, religions. Very important element of the values of our community. And our students rate our community highly in terms of this as well. 22nd highest of 245 institutions surveyed. I think a good amount of this is owed to the fact that that we have students here at our Bronx campus who are now immersed in one of the most diverse cities in the country. It's an amazing opportunity for them to learn about people who are different from them, but it's also a reflection of that as a value of the institution, and also a reflection of that as a value of our incoming students. Students want this, and seemingly, according to the survey results that we get here at the university, they are finding this here at the university. Very important element of our enhancement of belonging. An enhancement of belonging as well for our students who in other environments and in cities and in communities across the country are, talking in quite passionate terms about opposing discrimination and bias. It's a national conversation right now, a national conversation that our university is a part of. One of the things that we do here at the university is we train women and men for others. Women and men for others need to be prepared to think critically about their communities and about the status quo. And they do that certainly about our own university as well. And they are participating in activities here at the university that enhance that kind of critical thinking and advance a sense of justice for communities in the world, and a sense of solidarity for populations in this country and around the world who may not have been afforded the kind of dignity and respect that they have deserved historically. The least among us is in Catholic teaching what our students are very often focused on, or who our students are very often focused on in their commitments here as students and as parts of the community. Just wanted to mention, relative to that national conversation, there's tremendous information. I'm going to zoom out a little bit so you can see the hyperlink there. Fordham.edu/bias and Fordham.edu/against-bias. One of the things that we began doing a number of years ago in answer to the question, well, what is Fordham doing? What is our university doing? What are students doing at our university? We have been compiling in the course of these years all of the various activities, programs, events, and offices that have been working on and are working on a pretty energetic basis the issue of bias and discrimination, not only in our own community, but outside the gates of our university. So if you'd like to gather a little bit of information or see what it is that the university is doing, I recommend especially Fordham.edu against bias, a really good resource for you to get a sense of the university's commitment on this score. A commitment that comes from our mission. You see enshrined in our mission, not only in the Division of Student Affairs, but as a university, that we're committed to justice when it comes to our students, but also the communities that we serve. I want to talk a little bit about belonging, but I'm going to circle back around to this very quickly to just check our questions here. A good number of questions about the health situation. I'm going to loop back around to those in a few moments. Let me just mention quickly about the 20-state quarantine. We will be communicating this week or next with our procedures to manage that. That was a bit of a surprise to us at the university that the tri-state area was going to be putting into place this 20-state quarantine. We've been meeting and planning related to that over the past weeks since the announcement was made, and we're preparing a plan and communication to manage that. So there'll be more on that soon. Okay. In terms of belonging for commuters, I just wanted to share the good news. There's it can be a little bit deceptive visually because there's a very large hole in front of our existing campus center, circa 1957. Our campus center, a building that I love, a building in which my office has been located since 2013. Not anymore because of this construction, but this is a picture of the new campus center going up on what used to be a green lawn in front of the existing campus center, the old campus center. This is going to be a wonderful facility, especially for our commuters. Our resident students, I've spoken a little bit about, their sense of community here at the university, but I want to emphasize that we've got this whole new facility being built right now that in so many ways has our commuting students in mind. Very important for our commuting students, not just simply to arrive on campus and then immediately go home. We want students to be on campus. We want students to be interacting with one another. A bit challenging in the age of social distancing and COVID, of course, but hopefully by the time this building opens with its entire first floor devoted to our students with lounge and meeting spaces, hopefully we will have a tremendous venue that will in so many ways be for the campus as kind of its living room and kitchen. In my house, everybody congregates in the kitchen. In other houses, I'm sure there are other rooms like the living room. This is really a combination of these things. And as you can see in this photograph here, if you can see my cursor is the existing campus center. And we're opening up the space all around the existing campus center and building over here and beyond a completely new facility, which will house our mission integration and planning areas and also our career services area. But that whole first floor is for students, kind of a neat thing. Wanted to mention that for especially our commuters, and also wanted to put up the handle for our Fordham Commutes program, a good way to get a sense, scrolling backward through last year and the year before, all the wonderful programming that we have on campus from our commuter student services area. Let's talk about roommates. All right, this is for our parents of resident students. At this point in a typical presentation, I would be doing a very scientific survey of the students' families and parents by asking you to raise your hand and tell me if you had your students' sons and daughters at home in their own room or if you had them sharing a room. Some years ago, I think I may have mentioned that I've been doing this presentation since about 2003, 2004. It was just under half of our parents and families had students in their own rooms at home, but now it's the overwhelming majority. And so, of course, in our infinite wisdom in higher education, we operate on the model and on the concept of community living. And so we're taking all of these students who are coming out of high school environments where they had their own rooms, and we're placing them into a 14 by 17 cinder block box in a residence hall with someone that they just recently met. A bit of an advantage in the modern age, certainly related to roommates. Back when I was going to school, if I was lucky, the admissions area would send me the phone number of the person that I was matched with as a roommate. Now everybody's on social media, so oftentimes people are meeting each other and even selecting one another, though they hadn't met each other before they were all accepted to Fordham University, as roommates. So there's more of an opportunity to prepare oneself for that transition. But advice for parents as you make the transition to your first year: you may get a call that describes people who resemble these people at maybe, post midnight, 3 in the morning, from your students' sons and daughters who are in residence halls. Not all of our students are as equipped nor as comfortable being a part of the negotiation, the flexibility, the problem solving, the conflict resolution that can be entailed in living with people that actually look like this in reality. Our students and roommates, our residential life area does as good a job as it possibly can do using the questions in the housing application to match students with one another as they come in. If students request each other, we will match them with one another in our housing program if we are at all able to. We try to do that as much as we possibly can, and we usually are able to do that very easily, unless people, don't select each other or want different rooms or something like that. That can scotch that process. But there will be, for a certain minority of our first year class, be a conflict that has to be resolved in a room. We are not, of course, the concierge desk at the Ritz-Carlton. One is expected when one is assigned to one of our residence halls with a roommate to make a go of it, to try and resolve conflicts, to talk through some of the frictions and issues that naturally arise with two people living in a room inside of a residence hall. That we feel here at the university, and we're committed to this concept going back decades, is a part of our education, a part of what it is to learn to transition into the adult world, to be able to negotiate some of those conflicts. And the vast majority of those conflicts are minor things. Temperature. Will the window be open? Will the window not be open? What time are we going to study in the room as opposed to have guests in the room? Will we have guests in the room at all? Within the limits and the very reasonable boundaries of our university code of conduct, which, for instance, does not allow overnight guests of the opposite sex, all of those things are negotiations to occur inside of that roommate environment. That really is a part of Fordham University's education for students through community. And so we have in the first month what's called a room change freeze. Students are expected to work those things out. Again, within the very reasonable boundaries of our university code of conduct. If things are happening in the room that are violations of our code of conduct, that's a different story. And we will involve ourselves a bit more assertively in those sorts of things. But in the vast majority of cases, we're talking about things like temperature, things like windows being open, things like cleanliness, things like cleaning up, things like guests, things like homework. All of that is an expectation for roommates to work out with one another. We're not assuming that that's going to be easy or something that students are accustomed to. That's why we have resident assistants in the building who go through training in order to assist students in resolving those sorts of frictions and conflicts and negotiating. We actually have a roommate agreement that everyone gets at the beginning of the year that students fill out, which makes some of those expectations clear. Resolve some of these things even before they sort of arise in the residence halls. However, if students really do have an acute problem or an acute issue that they have a hard time resolving, resident assistants are trained to also sit each of the roommates down and go through mediation. If that doesn't work, maybe the resident director, the full-time professional that we have supervising the resident assistants in the building, will become involved in conflict resolution. We expect that work to happen through the first month, and if after the first month it still isn't resolved, then we can consider a room change. And that's how it works. That first month of residence on campus is an important element of the education that Fordham affords students. But it can sometimes be an uncomfortable phone call for you, complaining about a roommate. Be in touch with us. Encourage your students to be in touch with their resident assistants. I can talk to you about these things. The residential life staff in our Office of Residential Life can, of course, talk to you about how the roommate mediation process works, but we are going to go back to your sons and daughters and your students to talk about these things at the end of the day to resolve them. So wanted to let you know that, and also assuage your concerns a little bit. We don't just leave the students in the room to their own devices. We have an array of support services that are available to them when it comes to roommates. Taking a... Will folks' rooms and roommates be chosen based upon home state quarantine status? I think we're looking at that right now and have had some planning happening related to trying to take that into account. I think what will very likely happen is some combination of specific assignment approach and also early arrival on campus. So there'll be more on that coming. If your child requested a specific roommate and they requested your child, are they guaranteed to be roomies? I've never seen an instance where we haven't been able to make it happen. If both students request one another, they can indeed be, as you put it, roomies. No question about it. We will very likely have this presentation available. And I'm going to try and spend a little bit of time at the end, if I don't mess this up via Zoom, answering some questions live. And I'm going to be copying these questions as well to inform some of our Q&A and FAQ documents that will be available offline and after the presentation as well. Okay. The housing application. I can't give you the location live here right now, but if you're having a hard time registering for housing, please just email resliferh, resliferh at fordham.edu, and they will sort you out. Okay. All right. All right. There are a couple other things, a number of other things that I want to mention as well. I want to talk to you about a little bit about mental health and give you some very quick advice about mental health and some reassurance. College student mental health is oftentimes a matter of rather sensational stories in the national media. Sometimes it is this college age cohort, this population, this time of life during which mental health issues can emerge. An understandable concern for so many of our parents, and certainly an understandable concern for our parents who've had students who've had challenges through high school when it comes to mental health. I can reassure you a little bit just in describing some of what we do here at the university and some of the many staff we have trained and available to assist when it comes to mental health issues. But I want this list as well that's on your screen to reassure you as well. This is the overwhelming majority of things that our students encounter here at the university, according to our counseling and psychological services area. My portion of the university are resident assistants, commuter assistants, orientation staff, and others who are trained to assist students when it comes to mental health issues and to get them to assistance in places like the counseling center or in our campus ministry area where you can find pastoral counselors. The one piece of advice I always give to parents every year is to try and convince students to avoid having this perception that they're going to completely remake themselves the moment that they are accepted to Fordham University and the moment that they step on campus. Some of the things that they've been doing, therapies that they've been using, counseling that they've been getting, or even medications that they have used to, over the past years, get them successfully through some of the challenges that mental health can throw up in any student's way. Shouldn't simply be thrown out the window and avoided, especially during the transition. Try to convince your students, your sons and daughters, to not go cold turkey when it comes to some of those things. And if you need some advice and need some referrals and need some assistance, even with a plan of care for when students arrive here on campus, call me, talk to me, and I will connect you here at the university. I'll talk to myself and we'll talk through what my advice would be. But if you need clinical advice and clinical referrals here in New York for ongoing counseling, we can help you with that as well. But I would counsel against this assumption that once one begins their college career, all of those cares and concerns that come to one or come to us or with us from high school just evaporate. They don't. The transition can be a little bit anxious for students and can exacerbate some of those issues. So please let us know if you're trying to come up with a good, solid, careful plan for transition, and we can help you with that. And I want to talk to you about an even more acute concern for us here at the university. It's an acute concern in part because this issue, alcohol mostly, but alcohol and other drugs, is connected with so much else that can go wrong and harm students in our college communities. This is a national epidemic and has been for decades at colleges and universities, the tendency of our students to abuse the drug of choice, which is, of course, alcohol. And these are national statistics that hopefully drive home the severity of our concern when it comes to the use of alcohol, especially. It isn't about whether or not there's a moral or ethical decision related to the use of alcohol and underage drinking. It is against the law in the state of New York, and of course on campus we are responsible to enforce New York state law when it comes to underage drinking. But it is a simple fact that drinking is associated with all of the various maladies and accidents and tragedies that you see on your screen here today. And it's one of the reasons, really the main reason, that drives us to be as stringent as we are about use of alcohol. And I want to talk to you about some statistics related to use of alcohol that I think will show you our commitment, but also reassure you somewhat. Vast majority of our students are very aware that we are concerned on campus with alcohol and other drugs. That's an important perception. If research shows, but also just common sense shows, that if students feel that the university doesn't care about this stuff, they shouldn't care about it either. It sends a real message that such a large percentage of our students feel that this is an important thing that we need to be concerned about. Very important for them to be aware of programs here at the university that can assist them when it comes to alcohol and other drugs. Among them, the conduct process. The conduct process, which is essentially a process to have students in a formal setting meet with an adult in the community, typically a resident director, for a formal conduct hearing whenever they violate the alcohol or other code of conduct elements, is an important part of the process here. Having an adult, a trained adult, who sits with students to talk about better decision-making, ethical decision-making when it comes to the use of alcohol and other drugs, is what happens when students are found by resident assistants, commuter assistants, or others using alcohol underage. And you will be involved in that. We will be letting you know if we send your sons and daughters to the hospital for intoxication. We'll call you that night. And we will be letting you know in the week after they are found responsible if they are adjudicated for violation of New York state law and university policy on alcohol. We're not the kind of institution that keeps that secret from you. We will be communicating with you in the freshman year when there are violations of our alcohol and other drugs policy, because we feel that you are a part of that conversation that needs to happen with students. These people keep us busy, people that don't even know we have programs here at the university. Very important statistic as well. People know we have rules, know we have expectations and boundaries when it comes to alcohol and other drugs. And I think hopefully know intuitively that they're meant for their benefit, that they're meant for their safety. Again, these people keep us fairly busy, the people that don't even know we have rules related to alcohol and other drugs. Let me see if we have any substance abuse related questions here among the questions being asked. I think I talked a little bit about advice about being in contact with students. Right. This is a great question. I went to school when you spoke to your parent maybe once a week via the payphone in the hallway. All right. It's every family's. I remember those days very well. Didn't have a phone in my room. Payphone in the hallway. It's a personal matter for every student to work out with their sons and daughters and students. Play it by ear. See how it goes. Stay in touch. Don't wait for them to call you. That's my advice. Call them. Daily feels like a lot. Weekly seems fairly typical, is my sense when it comes to communication. Maybe more in the beginning of the year, a couple of times a week. Check in. I encourage every parent to check in. But play it by ear. I'm sorry I don't have a sort of a standard piece of advice for that, because I think it varies so much. I want to talk a little bit about something that's actually quite related as well to substance abuse on campus, and I'll show you statistics that emphasize why. National media attention, of course, to this issue has been widespread, and so a number of years ago we added campus assault and relationship education, or sexual misconduct in the college environment, to our presentation to share with parents how the university approaches this very sensitive and difficult and challenging issue. We want you to have a sense of how Fordham University handles these things. You can see a lot online and in the national media about how much controversy and how much difficulty colleges and universities have had in handling this area. So we added several slides and actually some statistics you'll see in a few moments from our third time we've administered it, our campus-wide, university-wide actually, climate survey, gathering information from students about sexual misconduct. But a couple of things that we do, a number of things that we do. Survey and education is happening this summer. Students will actually be getting a survey, a test of sorts, on their knowledge and attitudes related to sexual misconduct. We've been doing this going back, I think, more than a decade. So we've got a lot of data from students. And what we do is we give them this pre-test over the summer, and then we give them a post-test after they've gone through orientation, first year core programming, first floor meetings, and other education on campus, to see what effect our training and education has had for our first year students. Very important element of our process is not only having this education, but also testing to see if it's been effective. So that's coming this summer. There are devoted or dedicated sessions at orientation related to healthy relationships, sexual misconduct, and sexual assault. Educational sessions at orientation as well related to substance abuse prevention, which is so connected to this problem. Follow-up sessions, we actually have mandatory sessions, one of 4 mandatory sessions for every incoming first-year student that is scheduled for September and October, is something called first-year core programming. Those core programming sessions, one of them is dedicated to sexual misconduct. So we reinforce all the information that we give at orientation, that we give at the first floor meetings, in the first months of campus, in order not to assume that everyone remembers everything from orientation. Like I said, we resurvey to test the effect of our education, and we see, we follow all these measures, and we see that we do move the needle in terms of knowledge when it comes to prevention, when it comes to the definitions of sexual misconduct, when it comes to, especially for our students as they socialize oftentimes with alcohol, when it comes to the boundaries of their treatment of one another and how to treat each other with dignity and respect. That's an element of our training as well. I think I've already talked about our focus on alcohol and education and the conduct process. But when things do happen, for all of our preventative work in the course of orientation, the summer, and in the first months of school, for all of our education and all of our efforts to prevent these things, we have a sensitive and rapid assistance process that unfolds with my office as Dean of Students and the Department of Public Safety to assure that students very quickly get assistance. One of the things that all of our students get, and I would highlight about our sexual misconduct process, is an administrative support person. If a student walks down the hall at 3 a.m. in one of our residence halls and reports to a resident assistant that they've been the victim of sexual misconduct, God forbid, the first response is to have someone walk into the room next, a trained member of our resident director staff who serves as an administrative support system or support person for that student all the way through any of the process that then unfolds. And the process that then unfolds is strictly up to the choices of the student who has made this report. Very important element of Fordham University's process that it be confidential, that it be private, but that it unfold only at the speed and in the way that the student reports this to us. Never will students be locked into having certain things happen in the process. The administrative support person lays out all of their options for a next step: reporting on campus, an on-campus conduct process, reporting off campus, not reporting at all, reporting in both places. And we work very closely with the New York City Police Department if students do opt to report this outside the university and report to bring criminal charges against someone related to sexual misconduct. Very similar and rapid formal response to bias, something else that my office, the Dean of Students office, works with the Department of Public Safety to respond to. Very important that we respond to these things and send the signal that we're very concerned to mitigate the frequency of sexual misconduct and bias incidents on campus. A couple of things that we don't do that you may have read that other institutions have done and have gotten, I think, some, in some ways, deserved difficulties in the PR department for doing. We don't mediate sexual misconduct. We don't place two students into a room, a complainant and a respondent, to talk about these things. We don't place complainants, people reporting sexual misconduct, in front of panels to investigate these things. There's an appeals panel, but that's strictly the choice of the student if they are unhappy with an outcome of an investigation and conduct process. But we don't place students in front of a panel to have to tell their story. That doesn't happen here at Fordham University. We don't move slowly, and we don't discourage reporting. One of the things that we do in all of our education and programming efforts across the board here at Fordham is encourage students to report. And we do that, and we put such effort into it because so much of the national media and stories about sexual misconduct can give students at least some anxiety and some skepticism about how large institutions like colleges and universities are going to respond to their stories. So we have to actually work against that impression that's out there and reassure students that we are going to respond very rapidly, but very sensitively, leaving up to them any next steps in the process. Okay. Trying to be mindful of the time as well. I'm looking at the orientation people on my screen. We got a little bit of time. A couple of minutes? Okay. I think I got the, yeah, we do, but not really response there. Quick statistics. These are reassuring statistics. 96% of our students, according to our 900-person survey, we surveyed everybody, 900 responses, 96% of our students feel safe on this campus. That's a very important statistic. 87% of our students remember all of the work done, not only by administrators, but by students to educate their peers about sexual misconduct and about our expectations as a community for how we treat each other related to gender and sexual identity and intimacy in relationships. 81% of our students, according to this survey, are confident that the university takes reports seriously. That's a good statistic to have, especially in such a controversial area. very challenging area of operation. And the most frequent question that we get, how often does this happen at Fordham University? So one way of asking that question is to go out with an anonymous survey to ask students to self-report whether they've been the victim of sexual misconduct. And we ask an array of questions, everything from attempted sexual misconduct all the way through actual sexual misconduct, either while the student was conscious or while the student was incapacitated due to, for instance, alcohol. And somewhere between 6% and around 11% of our students say that during their Fordham careers here at the university, they have had some sort of incident of sexual misconduct. So sharing that statistic with you as well. And this is the most recent survey that we did, the climate survey in 2019. The great majority of these incidents happen off campus, which is not a surprise. We have a large number of students who live off campus. We have a large number of students who started out their careers as residents on campus, but have moved into Belmont, the neighborhood just to the south of campus. And we have, a good number of, bars off campus that students frequent. And so I can tell you just from looking at the reports that that environment generates the majority of our reports, and our students reflect that as well in this survey. And a very important element of this that hopefully goes a long way in explaining how much emphasis we place on responsible approaches to alcohol use and opposition to alcohol abuse is this statistic. Though it in no way excuses the behavior of our students when it comes to sexual misconduct, and in no way places responsibility for that on the victim. Alcohol is associated with, according to students on this climate survey, associated with 91% of these incidents. That's why we take alcohol and substance abuse as seriously as we do, because we know the intimate connection with tragedy like sexual misconduct, crime like sexual misconduct. All right, and wrapping up. Our job is to teach, your sons and daughters, even more than they already know today, about how to be women and men for others, to ask them the very important question, how will they live their lives? We do that outside the classroom in this sixth class that I've been talking about from the beginning of the presentation. The core of their education will, of course, be the life of the mind and the academic, but so much of their experience and the majority of their time will be spent with us and with one another in community. We hope that they learn from this to be better people than when they arrived and after we've given them their diploma and they exit the gates of the university. I want to thank everyone for all of your attention during the course of the presentation. I'm going to place my information up here on the screen as well. Not the best. There we go. That's a little bit better. Hopefully folks can read it. Please do email me any additional questions or anything else that you'd like us to address. I've just copied a bunch of the questions that folks had. I'm going to unshare. Well, I'm going to keep my screen shared, but with for Nicole and Tom, can I answer some of these questions live here, or should I? Yeah, I can do that. Okay, so I can keep this open. I'm going to mute myself, and I'm going to answer some questions live, and then I'll go and answer live on the actual Q&A as well. Does that make sense? Cool. I'm getting a thumbs up. Okay. I want to answer some COVID questions as well. And in advance, apologize if I'm not able to give you very specific answers on some of the things that are rolling out in more specific plans, like for orientation, move-in, and quarantine. Residential living has already changed to some extent when it comes to the ongoing health emergency. We've eliminated for freshman year all of our triples, for instance. So we've already made the decision to eliminate that level of density in our housing. And we will have more announcements when it comes to housing density in the coming weeks. Will the students who will be living in the dorms be required to be tested for COVID-19 prior to moving in? Yeah, we will have various self-reporting requirements that are going to be coming out and detailed in the coming weeks. Another parent asks, I'm most worried about quarantine requirements. We will have a plan for that coming out again this week or next. Mindful that that situation is changing from day to day. New names or new states on that list, and new requirements being issued by the state of New York. But we have a plan for that. I think I've talked about testing. Talked a little bit about quarantine. What is the plan if a student tests positive for COVID-19 at some point during the semester? We actually have had since May a working group developing plans for that. We had, as you might imagine, as the pandemic became more and more apparent and more of an emergency coming from January to February, we actually dusted off our plans from previous pandemics, H1N1, and some of the SARS and MERS pandemics. We had plans on the books and emergency protocols on the books that we then updated for use in the spring semester and actually used in the course of the spring semester to isolate, quarantine, and do contact tracing for infections as they arose in the community. So we were actually using some of our existing protocols. We've spent the summer updating those protocols for the new environment and restarting operations in class and on the ground and in the residence halls for fall. And so there is a very elaborate plan that our health services, our student affairs area, and our facilities area, and multiple offices around the country, in conjunction with the New York State Department of Health, have developed and will be having, for use in the fall. We're actually setting aside pieces of our housing program, large portions of our housing program, in order to allow for isolation and quarantine of students as they are both either tested positive or are exposed to COVID. So that's one of the things that we're doing. Will there be strict restrictions on student travel on and off campus during the semester? I think we will have rules and expectations when it comes to that. One of the policies and sets of expectations and rules that we anticipate having will make a common sense approach to socializing off campus, high risk activity off campus that then gets brought back to campus, something that we work with the community to oppose. Not only rules, but also expectations and really incorporation of students influencing other students as much as possible on this. We want students to have the sense that they need to influence their peers and their friends not to engage in activities that could basically threaten our ability to stay open during the course of the fall semester. We've actually had some very preliminary conversations with student government and other student organizations, because for as much as we can publish rules and make clear that there will be ramifications if students put themselves at risk, we want students to influence each other about that and appeal to their sense of community in order to make it less likely for people to engage in high-risk activities. What are those high-risk activities? Well, I'm worried about bars. I'm worried about house parties. I'm worried about mass transportation. I'm worried about the typical and stereotypical ways that students celebrate and socialize. Because as we've seen in other states, that appears to be a key venue for transmission. Sitting at home, you may be sort of shaking your head wondering how I, as Dean of Students, am ever going to keep college-age students from socializing, celebrating, being present at bars, or being present at house parties. I'm asking the same question myself, but we are going to have rules and expectations on that. They'll be a part of it, but hopefully the sense that students have that they can very easily, by doing something dumb and not using good judgment, they can very easily scotch this semester. Hopefully that will have an effect on our students and influence them in a positive direction. So that's as candid an answer as I can give you when it comes to that. Our dorm rooms wheelchair accessible. We call them residence halls. And yes, we have ADA accessible rooms around campus. You should be in touch with the Office of Residential Life to let them know if your student, son or daughter, has any mobility issues. and we will get them to our ADA accessible rooms for sure. Do we anticipate being able to test students, staff, and faculty for COVID? Yep, we've been planning very aggressively to unfold testing on campus for our students, staff, and faculty. Okay. I think that's a fairly representative group of questions. And I want to thank you for the questions as well. And hopefully that answers some of them. Stay tuned to fordham.edu/coronavirus. The overwhelming majority of questions are related to COVID, COVID and housing. I'd say virtually all of the questions. So thank you for those. Stay tuned to fordham.edu/coronavirus for updates. We will be back in touch. And thank you for your attention today. Take care, everybody. See you in August.
Thank you so much, Dean Rodgers, for your presentation and for all of your insights. Parents, that's all for you today. If you signed up for tomorrow night's administration panel, we will see you tomorrow at 8 p.m. During this panel, you'll have the opportunity to ask any more questions that you may have, so make sure to get your questions ready before then. We hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and we look forward to seeing you all again. Thank you for joining today, and we hope you enjoyed day one of our virtual summer orientation program.
Good job, guys. Thank you. I've copied the questions so I can save them into Tom. I think you've seen that document that we've been saving the questions onto.
Okay, yeah, I was just chatting you to see if you wanted to save them or not, but you got them?
I got them, yep.
Okay, cool. Sounds good.
Anything else we need to do? Or are we good?
No, I think we're good. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. Great job.
Right.
These have gone very well. Congratulations.
Nice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Have a good one.
See ya.